My test live stream lost because apparently Facebook one actually matters now. Apparently still no one's coming onto the YouTube though, so that's interesting. Not too long ago, I'm getting random people. And they're just like, I like me on Facebook, I'm being like, hey, I thought you were on YouTube. Okay. Alright. Alright. Okay. Wow. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Look at that. Easy peasy. Okay. Some red lighting. Not like light, but.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Like, you're supposed to use less product in my face. So it's not like fucking kicked on me. Where is my computer anyway? Shot through the house, and you're to blame. Oh god, I hate fucking Bon Jovi. I think that's what it is. Okay. Really? There are actually people still fucking watching the, like, who go to the YouTube channel. Let me know. As far as YouTube's concerned, nobody watches the YouTube stream anymore. But a lot of people on Facebook apparently still watch. Mm-hmm. Apparently. Watch. Go in. door. What the fuck you doing? I think that one's dead. I have more candles. There we go. Candles. Candle. Get up there. Alright. No! No! Go somewhere else to do it. Ugh. Why? Why can't you just go into another room and smoke? Okay. Alright. Okay. Bitch! Ass! Knuckle! Whoops. Well, like, obviously, I should be listening about people saying or not. I feel like at this point, I'm just like so beyond having that type of conversation with anyone ever. like I'm not actually gonna have an adult conversation with somebody who's just like, you said the N-word. Yeah, because it was in the sun. We were all singing. Not having that conversation anymore. That's the kind of conversation that people are gonna have about it. Well, maybe. Don't hang out with some black people, maybe. Um. And no, I do not forget more. Because there's no racist for it. What was that fucking song you sing? Song about booties. Like strip the booties going. I'm getting paper. So dusty. Hi. This is literally all just not to freak out my mom. Otherwise, I'm gonna give a shit. Like, I really, really don't. It like sticks to my nose hair. My nose gets itchy, but I don't want to itch it. I can't. My nose. Me too, Cam. Me. Butterface. So I guess this is growing up.
A little bit.
Mm.
I'm catching myself on fire.
Oh. Oh, there you go.
Oh, you can splash it on yourself. Oh. Yeah, you can press something, right?
Yeah. I'm candle. I'm gonna fucking be like, oh, already recording. Starting. Yeah. Apparently it's already been like 14 minutes recording. Whatever. Not done my face yet. I don't want to freak them alone. So as long as my mom licks my face, this is fine. And as long as it is within business hours, apparently. Even though they're like at 4 o'clock in the morning, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you guys doing? Go to bed. You guys are like super ancient.
I think the ship just blew up.
Oh, shit. I need batteries. A battery?
Fire. Our mask is not-
Oi, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'd say forget about the loss.
Some of this shit. Oh, that one's like dead. Okay.
I think our boat is sinking.
We're going down. In a nearly around sugar, we're going elsewhere. I'll be your number one with a bullet. I love the lyrics of that song. It's so stupid. A loaded dog conflict, can't get and pull it. We're going down. Mhm. Yeah, Jack. Wait, I like making these things creepy looking, like a dead tree. This thing is actually a great investment. Actually, no, I found it in the garbage. Like, it's literally everything else in my life. It's not pointed directly into a candle. You didn't see shit. Alright. It's sitting on something to fish. Caesar's treats would be dog food, dog treats. Okay.
Oh, that's like smart.
Woo! Yay! My dog understanding himself. Okay. I'm gonna put on TV while this happens. The really funny with yogurt. Before it goes bad. But while I finish my face, you guys can watch TV. While I'm still allowed to make movements in my dwelling, the place that I reside, because apparently my existence is not acceptable, or whatever. Fucking the habits when your mental illness is so bad that it literally like is contagiously airborne. FLQ, yeah! Fucking October crisis! Fucking learn about that shit. I did not know about October crisis. Shit is fucked up.
To make orders or regulations that are believed on reasonable grounds to be necessary to respond to the issues at hand. That's how the government explains it on its website. Obviously, you would have already picked up being.
And I found out a lot of people don't know what CRTC is, and it's the Canadian Broadcasting. Dumont is the guy who made TV from using Morse code and radio or something like that. Anyway, he's the one who made TV and I guess fought with like bigger companies that eventually ended up buying TVs, which was I guess Canadian. So that is why all our radio. This is why they were able to do fucking, what is it, Hiroshima and Vietnam and shit? That's why they were able to convince everybody that what they were doing was a mission of, what do you call it? Human rights mission kind of thing. Do not express or overtly become racist. Well, that followed through to TV media. Love in the heart. Love in the heart. You know what's in your heart. You know whether when you're saying something you want to hurt somebody. And I'm saying that if them truckers are doing what they say they're doing, then 90% of them are vaccinated anyway, so we'll take that off the table. But just say, we just want some bloody freedom. We're heroes a minute ago, and they're like ordinary working Canadian people. We just want to express ourselves. I agree with their right to do that. This broad authority doesn't junk the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Yes.
It does, however, include the power to prohibit travel, public assemblies, and the
yet they're advertising fucking traveling.
To force people or companies to render essential services, to impose fines and imprisonment for violating any of the emergency rules, to use the military as police. If you go back and look at people 5-10 years ago, like people that were considered to be, and
they were like, "Oh, we don't like seeing our army soldiers like fucking on the street, fucking just it makes the public uncomfortable. Yeah, you guys are totally okay with doing it fucking over a golf course. Bring the fucking military, bring in the army, tanks and all. Like, fuck shit, man.
The kind of war that, please God, will never happen again. because the world's changed.
And he's like, oh, don't worry, we're not bringing in we're not going to bring in the army or anything. Yeah, probably not, because they're busy somewhere else, obviously.
Coalesce in alignment and in agreement.
That's the only reason why he hasn't done that.
To limit the ability of ordinary people to protest about the conditions of their
Oh my
life.
God.
So you should, whoever you
I
are,
knew it
you should
was that.
forget what you think. What are they about? Is it vaccines, mandates? Who cares? They should be allowed. They should be allowed. Unless we're dealing with like real serious, deep, almost universal issues of taboo, when we all know what they are, you should allow people to have freedom. Even if you happen in this issue, and I'm like, remember me, I'm open-minded, open-hearted. Even if you agree with Trudeau, good, I want these protests shut down, I don't like it. Some of those people have beards. Like, even if you're totally on that side of it, all over the world, new regulations and legislation are being implemented that systematically prevent protest. And you might say, well, I don't want to protest. Well, let's hope you never need to protest in the future. Let's hope that these centralising technocratic forces never come up with an agenda around something that affects you, because it might do. He says the powers will be used for 30 days. Have we heard that before anywhere? Just for 10 days. Half an hour, strengthening the federal police, beefing up penalties, dragooning private tow truck companies, and incredibly directing financial institutions without orders to freeze personal and corporate bank accounts connected to the protest. If you read, right, just try this as a thought experiment.
Just like the curfew. That curfew, that was fucking illegal. As a free fucking citizen, unless there are fucking people literally dying all over the place, like, no.
Proven criminality around like the most heinous crimes and proven terror with evidence, empirical evidence, not protest, not people bibbing their arms. Without due process and used against often caricatured protesters, these powers invite further abuse. Putting aside personal opinions about this particular protest, think about how those powers could be used. And I know they're telling you, and it's only for 30 days, just a little 30 days, it'll be over by Christmas. We're getting a little used to this kind of rhetoric, can't we? Trudeau last year denounced
I'm creating a checklist that makes choosing your cold and flu pills dead simple. Step 1, confirm your symptoms.
Yeah, they're far more
as misogynists and racists. The irony being that
feel a headache coming on?
And racism
better take it down now.
Because they're simplifications, bigoted generalizations, purgative and dysphomistic descriptions of a group of complex, varied people. This is not a peaceful protest, Mr. Trudeau says. Though in more than 2 weeks there's been no violence. The protests have been highly disruptive to downtown Ottawa and to cross-border trade. But that they cease honking horns in Ottawa.
Or students are not actually in school.
Police were able to reopen the Ambassador Bridge connecting Detroit with Windsor, Ontario, without incident. Ordinary laws authorise police to clear illegal blockades. Why are sweeping emergency powers needed? Based on just that sentence there, unless this is a lie, what I'm reading in the Wall Street Journal.
The government. Get all these old fucks out of the government. Anyone who's their mommy or daddy, or any family member, or associate related to that politician. Nope.
The federal government
I can't work at the airport with my sister because it's a conflict of interest. They shouldn't be allowed to fly.
And clear standards for good reason. The act allows government to bypass ordinary democratic processes.
Yes, fucking union rep I called my boss's brother. Great.
Challenging, I believe, for a lot of people is
this union dues for fucking union.
Usually undertaken with a good deal of compliance because of the acceptance, broadly speaking, that is an emergency and that it was required. As the situation alters, there should be a symbiotic, obviously, relationship with the government where these powers are rescinded, not where they're increased, because governments like control and power. That's what their job is. The same way Coca-Cola likes sugary brown water. The standard has not been met. The Emergencies Act can only be evoked when a situation seriously threatens the ability of the government of Canada to preserve the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Canada, and when the situation cannot be effectively dealt with under any other law.
Yeah, but our cops are still got to be competent at this point.
Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, whose province has seen protests at border crossings. We have all the legal tools and operational resources required to maintain order. Until a few days ago, this was also the public position of Mr. Trudeau's government. As Carson Jeremiah put it in Canada's National Post, in less than a month, the Prime Minister has gone from dismissing the Freedom Convoy as a small fringe minority to invoking legislation that is designed for a foreign invasion or a civil war.
You're doing fucking circles, you're getting caught in a fucking loop with you fucking made yourself a bitch.
Oh my God, this is literally like being attacked by America. The use of language and propaganda here is revealing and
No, because
demonstrates
Biden was
that
like,
there is
yo,
the use of
get your fucking
propaganda
people under
and
control.
certainly a
Like,
total lack of transparency. E.g., at the beginning is described as a small fringe minority. Well, evidently it's not a small fringe minority because they've been able to significantly impact Ottawa and Canadian decision-making process. So gone straight to is a threat to Canada on a scale of a civil war or a foreign invasion. So it's not the small fringe thing. It's not the invasion. What is it then? Why aren't we transparently discussing what it is? Here's my guess. A large portion of the Canadian population are not happy with the way that Canada is being governed and denied access to democratic means. They're protesting. And because the Canadian government don't want to deal with that protest, they're using legislative language and regulatory measures to dismiss, diminish and undermine the protest. That seems like one of the things it could be. This won't diminish the howls of tyranny from the truckers and could escalate the matter. Even the Liberal Toronto Star called Mr. Trudeau's latest move a shocking admission of failure by governments at all levels. A new opinion poll finds 3/4 of Canadians believe it's time the truckers go home. But polling also finds that many Canadians have sympathy for truckers and others adversely affected by vaccine mandates. Those figures suggest that people are unsettled by disruption, but that is the nature of disruption, while being broadly sympathetic to the cause. That, for me, suggests a resolution ought to be reached. Primarily, that places the obligation in the hands of the government, who have the power to end it immediately, particularly when we're coming to the point where those measures are going to be less restrictive anyway. And maintaining it seems like a symbolic hankering.
yeah, but you don't fucking back off before the fucking thing went through. Like,
rather than regulating a country compassionately with acceptance that people have different and varied views, and as long as those different and varied views don't impact other people in an egregious manner, their freedom should be respected. Ottawa
you
has
agree to
never
something doesn't
offered
mean
a
the
clear
person will follow
justification for requiring drivers who sit alone in the cabs of their trucks to be vaccinated.
Oh,
Nor does it
yeah,
make
there's
sense
child
for the
abuse.
federal government to threaten to tighten rules for interprovincial truckers, while Alberta and Saskatchewan have dropped their general vaccine mandates and on the first. This is, in a sense, it sounds
Why
like
March
from this
1st? Do it
report,
now.
a needless confrontation that is not for rational logistical reasons and therefore is symbolic. Backlash from the unvaccinated, vilified, excluded, pushed out of work, barred from Walmart in Quebec's case, shouldn't have been unexpected. When you hear that recited, it sounds to me like a persecution. This is true even in Canada, which was hailed prematurely during the Trump years by the New York Times and the Atlantic as possessing the secret to avoiding populist politics.
Oh.
If there is such a secret, it probably has to do with maintaining public order and not marginalising substantial segments of the population. Anti-populism, to me, sounds like anti-democracy. If people's voices can't be heard, if you are only willing to listen to voices that you agree with, isn't democracy, that's tyranny. Several protesters told the Observer that the rights they were fighting for were worth any financial hit. Rebecca, who did not want to give her last name, lives near the protests and has joined them regularly. She's been on unpaid leave for a government job for months after a request for a vaccine exemption on religious grounds was rejected. I'm a human rights activist. I don't think that vaccines should be mandated for people to keep jobs, and that's the primary reason I'm down here, she said. Rebecca, mysterious no last name, you fascist QAnon conspiracy theorist. If you've got nothing to be afraid of, why would you QAnon? Whilst it would be naive to write these protests off as simply an organic expression of legitimate political grievances, it would also be unwise to view them as entirely politically confected or driven by foreign forces or cash. Scott, who owns a farm equipment business outside the city and didn't want to give his last name, will you please give your last names, you conspiracy theorists, said he came to check out the protests with his son. He was sceptical about the decision to paralyse Ottawa, but has concerns about the government vaccine mandates. I think there's an awful lot of Canadians that are very quiet, like myself, on this matter, but probably are more in support, he said. In New Zealand, a convoy of roughly 1,000 protesters converged on Parliament's lawn and its surrounding streets on Tuesday. Not a single politician went out to meet the protesters. And isn't that fundamentally the problem? From the beginning of this convoy, and even prior to it becoming activated, Trudeau has vocally and vehemently condemned the protesters. Firstly, as a fringe minority full of misogynists and racists using pre-existing Trump narratives of deplorables worthy only of condemnation. Then saying that it's an act of civil war. Then evoking emergency powers. Then wanting to send in the military. Wouldn't another option be to have a conversation with people, particularly when what the posturing of Trudeau has always suggested is tolerance, compassion, open-mindedness. Oh, this is how you don't get crazy Trump demagogue figures through these reasonable people that are open and progressive and willing to have conversations. As long as you agree with absolutely everything they say or do and never protest. Here's a crazy idea. How about you get out there and talk to those truckers and say, hey, I may not agree with you on everything. Wouldn't it be crazy if I did? But I respect the difficult work you're doing, traveling around the country and the world, delivering things during that pandemic, hailed as heroes one minute, condemned as scum the next when it's convenient. Let's have a conversation. Let's resolve this together. We are, after all going to have to live in this nation, and I'm going to expect you to be tolerant of people that are different from you, from different groups and different backgrounds. So we're going to demonstrate that tolerance right now because we believe in the principle of tolerance, not just tolerance when it's convenient for us, not just tolerance when we can score cheap points without doing anything about it. Here's the chance to see tolerance in action, conversation, democracy, freedom, all the things that every flag in the world is supposed to represent could be demonstrated
all you
by
gotta do is
leaders in
fucking
this
mind your
moment. But
fucking
what do?
business. Like,
They hide, invoke emergency powers, and send in the
maybe
guns.
your life is so
There's
boring
your
that you have to get
liberals.
involved in
That's just
everybody
what I
else's
think.
bullshit.
Tell me what you think in the comments below. This is a conversation.
But
I might be wrong.
fucking
Isn't that crazy? Is that allowed?
crazy
People else
idea
be wrong?
here. There's other
Let me
people know that
Give us
exists
a
other
thumbs
than
up,
you. So
subscribe. Join the 5 million. Join us. Join us. If
when you fucking got used to it, stop being a
Look
cunt.
at this guy also.
Bobby
He's
has
signed
a
up to
business
my
about
mailing
it.
list. I'm touring all over the UK. You can come and see me.
Oh yeah, apparently Quebec News doesn't exist anymore. Trying to figure out if I can go get booze or not. That's fucking impossible. Fuck, I forgot. I like that I can prepare for a later date. What if I'm late to do my video? As we all know I would be. Distribution. Clipping le. That's how I learned to speak French. If you don't know a word, just say it in English with a French accent. You'd be amazed how well it works. Mama. Again. Oh, connection unstable. Okay. I farted and it's smelly. Oh, you dirty pig. Today. Yes. No. No. Standard licensing. Because I do shit. I'm not doing nothing wrong in this. Yeah, I get banned for a week. I don't even fucking talk. Just sit here and watch videos. Apparently, I'll get you fucking banned for muting you for me, dude. Okay, really? Oh, okay, mic is working. Oi, get your face out of there. Okay, I need... Get a space heater. These things are amazing. I don't know why people shit on space heaters. Oh, they don't do anything. Like, people have a lot of feelings about space heaters. I don't know why. It feels nice on my feet, though. Okay. Yeah, no shit. They're trying to rig the legal fucking weed market. Why would they fucking legalize it? God. Oh, did you know CBD is a controlled substance, even though there's nothing in it that gets you high?
There are 86,400 seconds in every day, and the best ones are spent at home. So find the joy in those precious morning seconds before the day gets busy. Let's make the most of the 18,000 seconds.
Really?
Hi, I'm Matt Stoller, and welcome to another big breakdown. So I'm a policy advocate and a writer, and I study the economy. And the goal of these videos is to teach you how parts of the economy work and how we write laws to structure those parts of the economy, to structure markets. So today we're going to talk about pot, marijuana. And
yeah, it's kind of like the industry that I was going to get into legally.
To structure marijuana markets.
Make a restaurant that
So
actually has good tasting pot.
The American government ratified the 21st
Pot,
Amendment.
like mostly like eating something from
Just a few years later, in 1937,
store.
we made marijuana illegal. So we replaced one form of prohibition with another.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, being tough on drugs has been as American as apple pie.
America's public enemy #1.
Yeah, it's fucking was it marijuana madness.
Drug abuse. In order to fight
Your
and defeat
gateway
this
drug
enemy,
gonna make you a
it is
fucking
necessary
crack
to
junkie.
wage a new all-out offensive. I've asked the Congress to provide the legislative authority and the
Ever
funds
since you fucking
to
came
fuel this kind
along,
of an
you
offensive.
just this guy's fucked up literally like the past 50 years.
Has steadily waned in the last 20 years. 19 states have legalized pot completely. 37 have made medicinal marijuana legal. As late as 10 years ago, the drug war sentiment was still quite strong. Places like Congress and among our political elites. So, for instance, in 2011, Republican House Speaker John Boehner said, quote, "I am unalterably opposed to the legalization of marijuana or any other FDA Schedule I drug." Standard drug war. But Boehner and other politicians were fighting a losing battle on America's second prohibition. The question today, maybe even a few years ago, was no longer whether pot will become legal. It's now when and how. Now, one way we know that is to listen to the same politicians who were formerly so tough on drugs and how they've now become ardent supporters of legalizing marijuana. So starting a few years ago, a bunch of them, former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle, former Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, former House Leader, and former Congressman Joe Crowley. They suddenly changed their boomer mindset, as did, surprise, surprise, John Boehner himself.
Like
People's
opinion on this issue have evolved. And I felt myself, like any other American, my position evolving over the years. But I never really thought much about it until Kevin and I began conversations 4, 5, 6 months ago. And I thought to myself, this might be something that I can lend my voice to that makes sense.
And the fact that you're joining the board, does that mean now you see a path in which either state regulations spread like wildfire or the federal level begins to embrace this instead of reject it?
Now, if you want to legalize pot, which most people do, you'll see this as a good thing. But what's far more important at this point is to understand exactly why once powerful politicians like Boehner are suddenly speaking out. And that has to do with another kind of greed that we are all too familiar with in our political system: money. Now, last year, sales of legal marijuana were at least $17.5 billion, which is give or take about $50 for every man, woman, and child in America. It's a big industry. And the money that pot generates is part of the pitch that men like Boehner are making for legalization.
When I'm talking to politicians, cannabis jobs are a major selling point, but so is the tax revenue. Colorado, perfect example. Since 2014, they've collected in the neighborhood of $815 million in tax revenue from cannabis. It's not $815 million in sales. They're ringing up
I know. Fucking
That's
wonderful. Are you
$815
fucking
million
serious?
in just tax revenue. Colorado poured that money into infrastructure projects, plugging holes in budgets. Healthcare. Heck, $21 million was handed to law enforcement. The police are using cannabis tax dollars to keep the streets safe. And the biggest chunk of this cash, $200 million, has gone toward building new schools. Out in Deer Trail, Colorado, there was an elementary school that was falling apart. Sewage leak in the locker room, swimming pool wasn't safe, school doors wouldn't lock.
But corporate advocates are not really concerned about money for schools. Former high-level politicians like John Boehner don't just become spokesmen for large industries for free. In a piece a few years ago on why Boehner changed his tune on pot, why he was speaking out, the New York Times showed that Boehner held a large stake in a $3 billion corporation then being sold to the biggest cannabis holding company in the world, Canopy Growth, to create an $18 billion monster. Buried deep in a financial filing from November 14th, 2018 is Acreage's disclosure. Acreage is the company that Boehner was representing. Acreage's disclosure that the two men each held 625,000 shares in the company, which if sold after the company's sale to Canopy, would net them a fortune. And behind Boehner are billions of dollars of investment, with the goal of building out an industry that could reach over $100 billion domestically and $1 trillion worldwide. Still, this leaves open the question of where the money's going to go and who will receive it. What's the business model? Pot is not like semiconductors or even cigarettes. It's easy to grow, which means that it's hard to maintain high profits. If you charge too much, someone else can just come to the market and undersell you. Consumers can even grow their own. The answer to how to keep profits and prevent competition in the market is monopoly. Now, here's an excerpt of a presentation a few years ago at the American Cannabis Summit Countdown to Legalization. Now, I really like this excerpt because it hits that sweet spot between boring and creepy that all great corporate sales pitches seemingly have. It'll give you a sense of just how investors and salesmen like Boehner are thinking about cannabis.
The first phase is a free-for-all. There are tons of startups and small firms. New players are constantly entering the market. Nobody has giant market share. No clear winners yet. Phase 2, that's where we see massive consolidation. Smaller companies start merging. Companies acquire smaller ones. Phase 3, that's where the mega deals happen. The big guys start merging with each other. We've seen plenty of these deals eclipse $100 billion. Then phase 4 is where the action slows down. You have just a handful of big players in an industry. This is the blue chip stock phase. John, where do you think cannabis falls in this timeline?
We're in a sweet spot right now. The cannabis is nearing the end of phase 1, and here's where it gets me really excited. We're starting to see those red blinking lights, signaling this industry is about to jump into phase 2 with a bang. Rapid consolidation could lead to rapid profits for those who strike now. The writing's on the wall. Scott's Miracle Grow.
Supposed to be fucking doing my phone thing.
They were one of the first movers. Their CEO declared that cannabis was the biggest thing he's ever seen. Initially, he committed to investing $500
Oh yeah,
million
until
in
fucking apparently whatever the fuck time people want to make up for fucking making any kind of sound.
hydroponics and lighting companies that sell soil to cannabis farmers. He's already cut checks totaling $705 million.
Illegally.
Scott's Miracle Grow isn't the only household name eyeing the cannabis market. Johnson & Johnson is linked up with two small firms. Coca-Cola is talking about making cannabis-infused beverages.
Fuck you guys,
He's on the board
man.
of a major tobacco company. Right. You think big tobacco is staying on the sidelines?
Yeah.
I've talked to these guys. They're going to sit this one out. And they have the dollars to acquire whoever they want. We're just beginning to see some action in the space. Imperial Brands, makers of Cool and Winston cigarettes, they invested in a medical marijuana research firm in the UK.
Yeah.
We can't forget the alcohol companies.
How much
On
fucking-
August 1st,
how many new
Molson Coors
statistics
announced
did
they
it
were
come out
partnering
with?
with Hexocorp to
Not
create
many.
cannabis-infused beverages.
But again, it's not that easy to create a monopoly around marijuana because it's a weed that a monopoly consumer products can make it easy to vape. There are markets for ancillary supplies to grow it, and all of these things have some barriers to entry. But the competitive threat of new entrants is always there. A lot of people know how to grow it already. So what's the plan? Well, they'll put cash into lobbying. Right now, the big weed companies are trying to get states to legally restrict competition so they can build and protect market power. In other words, they'll use the law to give themselves monopoly. Now take Curaleaf and Green Thumb Industries, two of the biggest cannabis corporations. Now here's what they're telling investors. Curaleaf says that it, quote, maintains an operational footprint of primarily limited licensed states with natural high barriers to entry and limited market participants, end quote. Now that's an annoying corporate speak way of saying they want monopoly power. Green Thumb Industries says it is seeking to operate in, quote, limited supply markets, end quote. I'd say slightly shorter but equally annoying way of saying the same thing. In fact, Green Thumb's CEO told shareholders in one letter that, quote, every day is day one at Green Thumb. Now, if this sounds familiar, it should. It's because it's Amazon founder Jeff Bezos himself coined that phrase to describe his own firm, saying that at Amazon, it's, quote, always day one. And what he meant was Amazon employees should always be aggressive at seizing market power and crushing rivals and suppliers, as well as from cities and states who do business with them. So the weed executives, now behind legalization, are taking their inspiration, in fact, plagiarizing the slogan from perhaps the most aggressive monopolist in the world. But it's not all bad news. It's early. In fact, mostly it's good news. We're right now transitioning illegal markets in marijuana to legal markets. It's very similar to what happened after the end of prohibition of alcohol that I mentioned at the top. Like alcohol, it's going to be regulated, or it's regulated right now at a state level. Now, because of alcohol, it's in the 21st Amendment to the Constitution. It says it's got to be regulated at a state level. But pot's a little different, the legal framework. Since pot is illegal at a federal level, but legal in some states, it's the states themselves that regulate it. And naturally, different states have chosen different models to organize these markets. So Oklahoma, for example, has 12,000 new weed businesses because of its particular regulatory model that allows competition by small firms. By contrast, Virginia handed out monopoly licenses, so there are fewer businesses. Now, it's an exciting time for cannabis because these are new markets, and so the rules are still being set. And how we structure these markets is very much up in the air. So what are the tricks the would-be monopolists are playing to game these markets in their favor? And how should states regulate their markets to best ensure competition? To answer these questions, I turn to an anti-monopolist.
The reason I know this is because I downloaded the entire SQDC fucking
is a drug
PDF
policy attorney and a fellow at the Drug Enforcement
be able
Policy
to
Center.
legally fucking
She's
sell
actually
pot.
written laws in Massachusetts to structure marijuana markets
I printed it
in a
and
way
read
that
all of
protects
it,
small
and
producers
I've
and
been
retailers.
looking at their
And now she thinks about
information
the
on their
problem
page
more
since they
broadly.
opened. And
So, Shalene,
previously, I was looking
what
at
are some of
laws
the
on
tricks that the big
pot.
weed monopolists are trying to use to gain and maintain market power?
Learn about health data at
please.
infoway.ca
I will get on it.
digital health learning.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
So I'd say the biggest trick is looking for limited licensing market structures. So going into a state and saying, in order to keep this under control, you should only have 15 or 20 licenses to make and sell marijuana throughout the whole state. And then they will lobby to get themselves, usually because they're already in the medical market, early access to sell cannabis. And then they'll do the same thing at the city level. So at the city level, they'll say you should only have 2 or 3 cannabis stores in this whole city, and here's why they should go to us.
So which states have been pro-monopoly on weed legislation and which states haven't?
So I'd say Florida is one of the worst. But in general, the East Coast has kind of been worse because the West Coast legalized cannabis first, and it was kind of before it was clear how profitable it was going to be, and so you didn't have as many big companies involved or lobbying. But on the East Coast, you see companies really lobbying for these kind of oligopolistic market structures. I'd say some of the best are Washington, Oregon, and then Massachusetts is a unique one because even though we're on the East Coast, we did put a lot of work into ensuring that no company can dominate the market. You can't have more than 3 stores, for example. And we also invested a lot into making sure that we were reading contracts and making sure that what was happening in real life was the same as what was happening on paper.
Yeah.
What are the possible health consequences of consolidation?
So I've been an advocate for legalizing marijuana for over 20 years. So I understand the benefits. But the concern is when you look at tobacco or alcohol or pharma, when you have profits that are a primary concern, and you have companies that are so big that it becomes difficult to regulate them, then you see a incentive to make more people use your products and to worry more.
Yeah, because their whole big thing was not
profits than their
advertising.
health.
You couldn't
So there's
advertise
nothing
in any
unique about
way.
cannabis that could prevent, for example, the products from being manipulated to be more addictive, or
Marketing to kids.
advertising that's targeted to children, or any of these other strategies that we've seen, frankly, in other industries like tobacco.
What should
Well,
states
that's what
do
they're
when
doing.
writing laws to create a healthy market structure?
So in Massachusetts, we did 2 things. We tried to make a
Okay,
fair
2 seconds,
market
commercials
that
coming
was
on.
accessible
My
for
favorite one
small
recently was the one
businesses in
to
general.
monitor your
And
alcohol
then we
consumption. But
tried
if
to
everyone's
give
zero tolerance,
particular
why do you need something like that?
advantages to the communities that have been most harmed by the war on drugs. But you can't really do one of those things without the other. Then we also tried to control the market from being dominated by limiting how many licenses one particular business or person can own. And then we paid attention even outside of cannabis businesses because, for example, with delivery, there could be an app or a tech company. There could be an app or a tech company that could dominate delivery and then control the cannabis delivery market. So we were very clear that no tech company could share in the profits or own in a cannabis company.
Yeah,
and they
but you
also
get
had to
someone
make
to.
sure the transactions are arm's length and fair, so that you couldn't promote a cannabis company on your app just because they're paying you.
Now, it's still illegal at a federal level, so how should the federal government legalize marijuana?
I think the key is to be really slow and deliberate at the federal level. I think history and literature are full of examples of something that was started with so much optimism and love and then quickly became out of control, like Frankenstein. And I think we might be headed there with federal legalization if we don't stop and understand the market and make sure that we're legalizing it in a way that is intentional and deliberate. So, for example, I would not jump straight into interstate commerce. I think that we need to understand there are a lot of big companies that are waiting in the wings that have not entered the market yet because they don't want to put their other businesses at risk. But once federal legalization happens, interstate commerce is allowed, banking is allowed, we really have no way of predicting what it will look like and how fast consolidation will happen. So I think taking it one step at a time, allowing states to continue their current markets, perhaps that are just within the state borders, is a good idea, and just being careful that we don't go so fast we have results we can't take back.
Julie, last question. So you've been doing this for 20 years. How's it going? Is Big Weed effective at lobbying? Are you optimistic about the possibilities for this market?
I'm very optimistic. Up to 90% of people now support the legal use of cannabis in some form. And at the same time, Big Weed is not very effective, even though big cannabis companies have hired former officials like John Boehner. They haven't been very successful. We haven't seen even one federal bill voted on by all of Congress yet. And so I think we have some time to do this deliberately. And I think that it can be, for once, a policy that is determined by the people and not by big corporations.
Thank you. And that was Shalene Tyler on setting up markets for marijuana. You know, it's an interesting moment. where cannabis activists are the ones saying go slow, while previous hardcore drug warriors like John Bader want legalization now, so that companies they are set up to rake in cash from can set up monopolies in this new industry. At any rate, if you take one thing away from this big breakdown, it's that there's no such thing as an entirely free market. Markets are public institutions, and someone always writes the rules. If you'd like to know more about big business and how our economy really works, you can sign up below for my Market Power Focus
That's all
newsletter.
you're allowed to say,
And
apparently.
remember, how we do business is how we do justice in America. Thanks.
Oh, please, yes, give me more open contact. Holy shit. No. Fringe minorities. Minorities.
Good evening, welcome to at&t National News Weekend. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Suspected unmarked graves were found on 2 more former residential school sites in Saskatchewan last week. Ground-penetrating radar showed 54 probable graves at the St. Philip's and Fort Pelly residential schools near Kisa Coast First Nation. That's in east central Saskatchewan. Here's Leanne Sanders with more.
This is now the 5th search to confirm the presence of graves at former residential schools in Canada.
And they try to be like, oh, well, nobody's been exhumed.
It's
like, fuck you guys, can't
the assimilation and genocide that happened there.
Our chief has recognized that healing is not a political event. The work that has been done within our community is not politics. It's a human issue.
Assembly of First Nations Chief Roseanne Archibald says the graves need to be investigated as crime scenes because there are children who never came home.
They knew about this, what was happening in these institutions. And one of the survivors
and
said,
I fucking should have known when the fucking Pope was just like too cool and he was like, oh, well, I don't think gay people should be murdered. It's like fucking that was like sign number 1, and then the fact that he's like, oh, I'm gonna come to Canada and fucking talk to the Native people. Like,
John Bowler of the Regina Catholic Diocese was at today's announcement. He's one of 2 Saskatchewan bishops trying to bring the Pope to Canada to apologize, and says he's been reflecting.
Good luck with
on how
that.
The church can walk in solidarity with survivors for real conciliation.
Reflecting on
I like that, the real conciliation, because like this is talking bullshit. No more, like.
And we are profoundly sorry for the role that Catholics played in the schools and the abuse that you suffered.
Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller says the strength of the knowledge
thoughts and prayers
should be recognized.
Fuck
as
you guys,
the truth they already knew is being revealed.
And it shouldn't have to be said, but I feel it does to survivors and your families. I believe you, and Canada believes you.
Oh my God!
Treaty Commissioner of Saskatchewan, Mary Carlson. Today's announcement is confirmation of the story she remembers when she was growing up on Kisa Coast First Nation.
you know, places you couldn't go play along with that teacher. It used to be.
They're still alive, these people.
Because we were always scared of where.
I think like it was like 97 or something like that. The last residential school in town closed or something stupid.
Someone home.
But it was like in the 90s, the last residential school was.
Behind the rink, and you'd hear a
Come
baby
on.
crying in the bush.
Another site will be searched starting this summer at the neighboring Cody First Nation. Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
You guys are fucked up. Can't believe that shit.
Win at work by communicating effectively with Grammarly.
Because we're all illiterate. Because we're all too dumb now. I'm basically illiterate. I just have Morgan in my fucking head. Sound it out. No? Can't continue watching this?
Thousands of people came out for Vancouver's annual Valentine's Day March for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The crowd sang songs, they chanted and drummed, and some of them even pulled down a statue of a famous Gastown pioneer. ABCN's Tina House was there.
The 31st annual Valentine's Day Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's March at Maine and Hastings, an area where hundreds have been reported missing or were killed. Family members like Marlene Jack, whose sister Doreen's husband Ronnie, and their 2 young boys were reported missing in 1989 from Prince George, BC. Despite hundreds of tips and ground searches, the case is still open with police appealing for anyone to come forward with any information.
Pray for our families. Pray for our women to keep them safe.
And with protocol and initial ceremonies complete, the crowd of nearly 5,000 began their somber march, remembering those they've lost and demanding justice. For Carol Martin, who was not only on the organizing committee, but she also knew many of the victims of serial killer Robert Pickton.
It hasn't gotten any better. Anything else has gotten worse. Violence has become a commodity. So is homelessness, and nothing has changed.
And just as the march was approaching the statue of Gassy Jack, this video caught the moment that some people in the crowd had used ropes to topple the statue of Jack Dayton.
Good for you guys.
A man that was famous for opening numerous taverns in the area,
Good for
later
you guys.
named Gastown.
Honestly,
But as Cease
people
Weiss
have been
explains,
fucking holding on to
Gassy
this
Jack
fucking-
was also known for another reason.
Gassy Jack is a very well-documented pedophile.
Yeah.
It's written in the archives of Vancouver. I
Not
just
somebody
read a
to have
poem,
fucking
and
statues
all of
on
the
her.
work that was
Fuck
in
that.
there mostly came from Vancouver archives. All the information about his
that
wives,
fucking
his 2
blows my
Swedish wives
mind.
being 12
All
years
this
old when he married
information
them.
you find
And
on
he
the
was over 40
government's
years old,
website.
and if that isn't a pedophile, I don't know what is. So we've all had to stomach for the last 150 years people worshiping this man because he built a village full of taverns.
Yep.
And for many that took
People
part
need
in
their
the
booze.
destruction of the statue, it symbolized taking back their power.
This is a step towards decolonization. This is a step towards reclaiming our spirit and for saying no more stolen sisters, no more pedophiles being glorified.
Men too.
Everybody shut down people like Harvey Weinstein, but we can't shut down Gassy Jack.
Fuck yeah.
We've sat here today watching people come up and take pictures like he's some hero. He's not a hero. He's a monster.
The city of Vancouver released a statement saying,
Like,
while
it's
the statue
fucking-
is clearly a
fucking
symbol of
disturbing to
pain, violence,
watch
and trauma
people doing this. Well,
associated
guess
with
what?
colonialism and violence against
They've been
Indigenous women
sitting that and
girls.
holding that in for
The
so long.
actions
They
that
can't
were
complain
taken
about it. They're not even
this
allowed
way
to like to say
undermines
anything
the
fucking
ongoing
negative
work
about
of
it
the
or like
Scottish nation
complain and
to
be
guide
like,
the
hey,
steps towards
this feels like it's a little bit
reconciliation.
uneven, a little bit not right.
Vancouver police are investigating what they call mischief, and so far, no one has been arrested. Tina House, APTN National News,
Fucking
Vancouver.
YouTube's not doing it.
The Assembly of First Nations also took part in the Valentine's Day March in Vancouver. APTN's Tina House caught up with Chief Archibald to ask what's happening to help the national crisis.
Thousands marched in the streets of downtown Vancouver, wanting answers and justice for the many cases of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Joining me today is the National Chief of the Assembly First Nations, Roseanne Archibald. We're still wanting answers and justice. Since the national inquiry wrapped up, what has been done with those recommendations?
In my view, the action plan is behind, obviously, and
Because
the
a bunch of people
has
in government
made
are not
reference
native.
to the pandemic being the cause of that. I don't particularly
Ever since that
accept
fucking Jody
as an
Royce and
excuse.
whatever the fuck her
We
name
really
is,
need to action
Refold.
all of those items,
Fuck,
and
man.
we have been working.
That lady's fucked.
it to our best ability given their agenda as the government. And so there's work to do, and the AFN does have processes, and looking forward to accelerating those calls for justice.
Blaming the pandemic is one thing, but we do know that because of the pandemic, more and more women are suffering behind closed doors. More and more women are feeling the effects of violence and physical and sexual and so forth. It's not getting any better. I mean, we're continually reporting on women and girls going missing. Now the men as well. So what can the government do today, right now, to make a positive change?
Well, there are some underlying other pandemics, shadow pandemics they're called, and definitely violence against women is one of them. Opioid crisis.
No, they get no resources. They get no help.
And in terms of what we want the government to do is to help us with our vision. And our vision is women who are loved, cherished, safe, and respected.
Acknowledge their history.
How do we get from where we are today to that vision? And that's something I expect the government would want to work with us on.
And we're incredibly proud
They say
that
they
our
do.
national chief is a woman. And thank you
But when
so very much for your time.
when it comes to actually doing shit,
Nice to see them
do you want to give them clean drinking water?
Calgary now, where it wasn't quite as noisy.
Hydro-Quebec going and setting shit up is not the answer. So,
It was a smaller crowd that marched through the streets holding red silhouettes representing family members. At this event, Stephanie English of the Piikani First Nation shared the story of her daughter, Joey. Parts of Joey's dismembered body were found in various places around the city 6 years ago.
It's a healing journey for myself and my family. It's giving me my purpose, why I'm here, to share my story, to
that's
help
fucked up.
others out there.
That's so fucking. And did you hear that on the news? No.
Through society.
You didn't hear
Today,
for fucking.
I'm motherless without my daughters. You know, I had to learn how to relive to be a mother again without my daughters.
Krista Fox is preparing to walk across Canada to tell Canadians about missing and murdered Indigenous people. She met up with fellow advocates and families on the notorious Highway of Tears. ABTN's Lee Wilson has that story.
MMIWG families and advocates welcome Krista Fox with drumming and ceremony. She's a North Battleford, Saskatchewan mother and grandmother, and is preparing to walk across Canada to raise awareness for murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. Earlier this month, she had an emotional journey from Prince George to Terrace, BC, along the Highway of Tears, a notorious name due to the high numbers of Indigenous people who've gone missing there since the 1970s. Fox says she had a powerful experience walking with the family of Frances Brown, who went missing in 2017 near Smithers.
And it was an amazing experience, you know, when we walked and we held arms and then we connected and held hands, and it was just like I felt his pain, you know, he misses his mom so much.
Later this month, on February 18th, Fox's birthday, her official walk will begin from Victoria, BC. Fox plans to carry all of the motions from meeting MMIWG families on her journey. She'll meet more families on the 10-month walk across the country.
And I will take all these thoughts and feelings and pain and everything with me as I go along my journey.
I want to build a phone pole along the Highway of Tears to remind people that there's girls and men missing on this highway.
MMIWG advocate Gladys Raddick was in Kitsamkeelam to meet Fox on the highway. Raddick completed a walk across Canada, raising awareness in 2008. She was also a key person behind raising the memorial pole on Highway 16. Krista Fox hopes that on her journey across Canada, she can meet with policymakers for Indigenous issues.
Don't fucking hear about it.
She says people often ask her what they can do to support MMIWG family. She encourages them to keep showing up.
I always say half of the battle is showing up. So I just would like people to keep showing up, keep supporting the families in the community, keep finding out, keep asking, keep, sharing on social media, whatever the case may be, because nothing feels better than knowing that somebody cares.
Mm-hmm. and that it's not all in your head, and you're not being crazy, and
We need to take a break, but there's
you're
lots
not
of news,
overly
so
emotional
heads
over
stay
something
with
that's
us.
like not as big of a deal, because that's what we like to do. I thought it was just Quebec maybe, but apparently it's all kind of.
With BMO Advice Direct, you'll get access to personalized trading advice and real-time alerts. Plus, get up to $2,500 when you open a new
With
account.
all my no money. Why aren't you working?
Welcome back. An Inuit First Nation on the eastern edge of Quebec is reeling from the COVID-19 outbreak. Unamenchibu recently lost 3 of their elders in the span of 6 days. Here's a story by Shashan McCollum, translated by Amelia Fournier.
Unamenchipu is in mourning. 3 elders have recently died from COVID-19, and they're in.
Oh, I'm not lagging. That fucking 5G network. Thanks,
Repeated
Elon.
ancestral knowledge has been lost.
Fucking stupid ass fucking
One
name.
of them, Albroaz Apenuen Lalo, wasn't able to get the medical attention he required. According to Alexis Lalo, Apenuen's son, the family worked hard to evacuate their father from the remote flying community as quickly as possible. Apenuen waited 4 days.
La première journée, quand même, il faisait quand même. La température était quand même très bonne, mettons pour faire une évacuation médicale par avion. Là. Mais sauf qu'ils ont eu la misère à trouver un appareil pour évacuer le patient. Mais à la fin de journée, c'est là que la température ça s'est dégradée.
The day after.
Il y a eu tout ça qui s'est embarqué.
Cases that need to be evacuated out to COVID prioritize patients, yeah.
Puis l'autre patient était plus, mettons, je pense qu'on était encore plus grave.
Like, why can we get fucking cell phone service in Middle Eastern countries and in like fucking Buffalo Norland where they're sleeping on dirt floors? Like, and they're fucking smartphones and no fucking shoes and they sleep on dirt floors. Yeah, we can get the fucking 5G. Can't even fucking get native people fucking out of here. Harpoons, my dad knew how to do everything.
Alexis' dad reminded him regularly to share with those in need, even those from the forest, as shown in this documentary, Le Temps d'une Chasse. Unfortunately, the chief of Unamenchipu has said that the community struggled to obey public health measures, which led to the outbreak that cost Apenuen his life. Chief Mike McKenzie of Uashat Makmani Utanem is part of the Innu Nation's COVID-19 task force. He adds that the chiefs are beginning to spread the message that populations must learn to live with the virus, and that some hard lessons have been learned.
Mais je pense au niveau de la romaine, je pense qu'il y a un taux de vaccination qui n'est pas élevé. Fait que je pense avec les dernières discussions que j'ai avec mon collègue chef, le chef Marc, on commence à reprendre la vaccination pour le monde de demande.
There's demand.
But the question remains,
it's not the problem.
How to live with COVID-19 in Indigenous communities while protecting elders. Alexis often thinks about one of the last conversations he had with his father.
Giving them fucking What? What? Okay, wait.
How to live with COVID-19 in Indigenous communities while protecting elders. Alexis often thinks about one of the last conversations he had with his father.
I just want to make sure that this one is working. Because apparently most of my live streams are not, at least not the ones on YouTube anymore. Excellent condition. Yeah, bullshit. Are we? Yeah. No, it still says you're stable. Fucking unconnection. Your connection is unstable. Fucking useless. Ah, there we go. Thank you. Whatever. Okay. We asked him if, say, he went into cardiac arrest. Do you want us to revive you? He said, yes, I want to be revived. I want to see my grandchildren. I want to do it for my grandchildren. That's what he said to us.
Though Alexei learned so much from his father, he admits having regrets, mainly not taking the time with his father to learn how to make a canoe. He hopes that others in Unem and Shiku will not have to face similar regrets anytime soon.
Keep fucking bitching Cameron out. I want him to go hang out with his grandfather.
News, Wendake, Quebec.
Because his grandfather's the medicine man.
The Chiefs organization in Manitoba is forming their own mobile crisis response team. Among other services, members will provide addiction support through traditional teachings and help for communities experiencing suicide crises. Jerry Daniels is Grand Chief of the SCO.
This isn't going to solve all the problems, but we are going to be able to help in a crisis situation. We are going to be able to be someone that the chiefs and the council and the community leadership can depend on to be there to help them through a crisis situation. And that's, I think, what we all want in the interim. But the problem is much larger than a crisis unit can establish. We would love to have, a crisis mental health system in every one of our communities, and that'll always be the goal.
We need to take one more quick break, but we'll be right back with some more news.
Grammarly can't teach you to dance, but it can help you make a great impression for free. As you type, Grammarly
Please shut the fuck up, or you can go get an education. And maybe it won't be free, but at least you will be able to spell.
Grammarly can't teach you to dance, but it can help you make a great impression for free. As you type Grammarly in.
Can I just... Really? Please?
Vancouver's annual Valentine's Day March for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. The crowd sang songs. To take one more quick break, but we'll be right back with some more news. In Alberta, Nahia youth in Wabaska are out in the bush learning to trap. As Tamara Pimentel reports, it's all part of a plan to keep the family trap lines where they belong in the family.
Seth OJ is a certified junior trapper.
Still learning. Once I have the money, I'll go buy some traps and start chopping some lightning.
As the trapping season comes to an end in Wabaska, Alberta, OJ joins 6 other youth in a camp funded by Alberta Health Services Honoring Life. A weekend for the basics from trapper Bobby Beaver.
And we're trying to get as many youth back on the land, not only for trapping, but to practice our inherent rights. And there's so many youth that are lost in their ways right now. And one of the best ways is to connect with the land. For me, that's my happy place.
But to become certified like OJ and Beaver, the youth have to take a course through the province, the Alberta Trappers Education Program. It became mandatory in 2014 to ensure furs are harvested using humane trapping methods. Beaver is an instructor and works with the Treaty 8 Trappers Association, which encourages youth to get involved. He says this camp only gives a rundown of what the 3-day course looks like.
Eventually, if you have enough years experience, I think some of the biologists are pushing 3 years of trapping experience, then you could take over your family trap line.
A common goal many here hope to accomplish.
If that's something that I do, then I'll be able to probably put my name as the junior on my grandpa's trap line.
Right now it's just my Musum
and my dad, and then it would be me. So far, 3 have signed up for the program. Alanis Yellowney and Chevy Young are 2 of them.
It's kind of a dying art, let's say, like a lot of things. And being able to have more people to know about it is good for preservation of knowledge.
Kind of keeps the trap line in the family, and if someone wants to try to take it, well, they can't, because there's another generation that's going to come up and take over.
Good for you.
According to the province of Alberta, if an Indigenous-owned trapline is not being used, the government would work with the affiliated nation to find a new owner.
It's all about new traps, new regulations we have to follow. And I totally agree with that, because we respect the animals we trap, we respect the land. And, and the humane ways is the only way to go.
On day 2, teachings from alerters, including OJ's catch of the season.
And I have some wolf bait stations out there. That's what I'm going for right now.
Soon, OJ will be able to take over his Musham's trap line and continue sharing his knowledge so others can do the same. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Wabasca.
Here's a horse story of a different color for you now. Indian relay racing is rough and rowdy. It's like chuck wagon racing, but without the chuck wagons. The sport is really taking off out west, and a couple of young entrepreneurs are raising the stakes. Here's our own cowboy Chris Stewart with that one.
To those who love it, nothing beats the thrill of watching live Indian relay racing. Competitors work as a team, riding a horse to fame and glory. And now the Super Series Indian Relay is launching this spring with competitors across Turtle Island and the United States. The level of competition will be high. Kimberly Breton is the co-CEO of the league.
So our season opener is May 22nd, 23rd in Leduc at Century Mile Casino. And right now we have 7 confirmed dates with 5 pending. So we're going to have about 11 sanctioned events. And our championships will be held at Enoch River Cree Resort.
It's one of, if not the highest payouts, with the championships possibly reaching a total purse of even more.
Our goal is our championship weekend in Enoch, September 3rd and 4th. The goal is to have 100,000. And we're working very hard with our partners, our sponsors, and industry. So we're working very hard, Trina and I, to make that $100,000 championship.
That the league will include a women's division as well.
We have a lot of women over here in Canada that are horsemen, and they want to do it. So we made it happen, and that's going to be first time in Canada.
Trina Shirt is another co-organizer, and she says Indian relay racing is gaining momentum quickly as a sport.
This Super Series is like spreading like wildfire right now. It's crazy. It's like exciting. It's like, oh my God, everybody's like calling up. They want Super Series hosted at their venues.
The league's top finishers will compete in the World Championships in Casper, Wyoming at the end of the season. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Well, that is a wrap on your news weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Will you help deliver life-saving relief this winter? To escape war and persecution, many refugees leave everything behind, even coats and boots. They're unprepared for the harsh winter weather and freezing temperatures. Families use blankets to cover drafty doors or to block the snow from pouring through a broken window. It's not enough. but you can help. UNHCR provides vital supplies like winter survival kits and cash assistance to help families survive the winter. This includes items like insulation to reinforce temporary shelters, winter clothes to protect fingers and toes from frostbite, and thermal blankets to keep refugees warm at night. I'm healthy and hopeful this winter. Donate to UNHCR today.
There's that giant island that's mostly made up of people's used old clothes. You can take from there.
It's been called the largest protest in human history. For more than a year, hundreds of thousands of farmers choked off 3 highways leading into New Delhi. They faced several violent crackdowns.
Holy shit!
More than 700 people died during the demonstrations.
What?
This attack was carried out by a politician's son. Farmers were willing to stake their lives because they feared corporations would have taken over their farms if the government did away with a guaranteed minimum price subsidy on certain crops. Then, in November, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that he'd take back the laws. It was a huge victory for the farmers. While their win was a blow to corporate interests, the subsidies they fought to keep prop up a way of farming that's destroying their finances, their health, and their land.
You do this. It's fucking work again.
This is Sukpura, a village in Punjab state, which is known as India's breadbasket. Almost everyone here has been to the protest last year, including Jasveer Singh. Farmers here are mainly in the business of harvesting wheat and rice, the only 2 crops subsidized by the government's price floor guarantee. Singh's father committed suicide 8 years ago. After finding himself almost $48,000 in debt, and he's not alone.
48,000.
About 10,000 Indians in agriculture to take their own lives each year. His family had to sell off all but their last acre of land to pay off what his father owed, but that's still not enough.
Machine operating costs, feed, to maintain tractors are also very expensive.
The generational debt began after the government incentivized farmers like his dad to give up traditional crops for wheat and rice.
Used to grow all kinds of sugarcane. The Green Revolution.
The Green Revolution started in the 1960s, when parts of the country were crippled by famine.
The immensity of India's food problem is baffling and frustrating.
Punjabis were always farmers, but they took on the burden of feeding India by switching to wheat and rice strains developed by American scientists.
Many new types of hybrid seed have been developed, and the farmer remains unaware of their potential.
Even though Punjab is just 1.5% of the nation's land area, the state supplied up to 70% of the country's wheat and 40% of its rice for decades after making the switch to monocultures. Those are crops designed to be grown one at a time in order to boost yields, but they require chemical fertilizers, toxic pesticides, heavy machinery, and use up lots of water.
This particular model of industrial agriculture, the only value it has is quantity. It's giving you a lot more. But it's also giving you a lot more because you're putting a lot more into the system.
Dr. Richa Kumar is an agricultural policy expert. She says these practices were unsustainable for family farmers.
We know Punjab farmers have the highest debt rate in the country. They basically got locked on to what is known as the technological treadmill of monoculture farming.
At first, farmers were given monoculture seeds funded by the Rockefeller and Ford Foundations and the US government. They continued to buy those varieties because they were the only crops their government would subsidize. Cultivating the same monocultures year after year depletes the soil and makes pests more resistant. So the farmers must continue to buy more toxic pesticides, more fertilizers, and new engineered seeds that can tolerate those extra chemicals.
Growing monoculture rice and wheat is hugely costly. That model can only work until and unless there is some kind of price guarantee support for farmers. And what you're seeing in the farm protest is this realization of farmers that you remove that and we are going to collapse.
Farmers like Singh get that subsidized rate at a government.
ਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੱਛਾ ਟੁੱਟਦਾ ਜੀ ਰੁਪਈਏ ਤਾਂ ਬਸ ਇੱਕ ਦੇਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਨਾਲ ਸਰ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਹੋਈ ਜਾਂਦਾਗਾ
Payback loans he took out for the fertilizers, pesticides, and machinery he's used for
You know
this
what?
harvest.
Honestly, fucking not really into watching Vice anymore. To disclose any kind of information. Oh my god. Oh my god, what are you doing?
Press release posted at the villages.
You guys gotta be shitting me. Oh, are we not the 17th?
Tonight, holdouts.
Holy shit, dude. This is fucked up. Very, very fucked up. You just raided somebody. You're fucking losing SWAT guys into these fucking people's trailers to fucking pull them out and arrest them. That's fucked up. Oh, Toronto businesses are frustrated with protest road closures. Oh, God. Fucking, we want you guys to get upset. I'm fucking real.
A lot going on in Ottawa right now. I have never been. The other day I posted videos saying that was the saddest day in Canada, and clearly today is. I've personally lost all respect for law enforcement. I know people that are down there. I know some of the cops. And it's a complete
But
embarrassment.
yeah, it is an embarrassment.
They're following orders, right? They're following orders. Everyone's
Girl
just
backbone.
following orders and stress, and there's a lot of panic going on. A lot of everyone's on edge. I mean, the cops are overwhelmed with the amount of people, and people are overwhelmed with the amount of cops. There is a tremendous amount going on. Trudeau is nowhere to be found. He is hiding in his little palace, away from everybody. It's an extremely sad day. I expect the cops with riot shields to come in very soon with riot gear. I expect, hopefully it doesn't happen, but it is an expectation that tear gas will start to come in. I don't think they're going to start using rubber bullets, but I definitely expect them to probably going to start with
You're
smoke
arming
grenades,
average everyday
just
cops.
because are we doomed?
Like, these are just literally the regular police force that were already overwhelmed, and you guys gave them a bunch of SWAT equipment. Like, they're the same people that can't seem to fucking hold their trigger happy finger fucking when they're trying to make a regular traffic stop, and suddenly someone gets shot. How did that happen? Oh, whoops, we'll do better next time. Great. Can't wait for that next time.
Optimistic, hopeful vision for public life isn't a naive dream. It can be a powerful force for change. If Canadians are to trust their government needs to trust Canadians. Those are the words of the Prime Minister in 2015. These people, very often misogynistic, racist, women haters, science deniers, the fringe. Same Prime Minister 6 years later as he fans the flames of an unjustified. Speaker, when did the Prime Minister lose his way? When did it happen?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastikas. They can stand with people who wave the Confederate flag.
Sweetheart.
They will choose to stand with Canadians who deserve to be able to get to their jobs, who will be able to get their lives back. These illegal protests
We didn't have lives like everybody else. For some of us, just saying. Yeah, you sit down, you smug fucking. Oh. I like this, like, smug, like, empowered fucking little facial expression. Shit.
Unbecoming Prime Minister, it's been 48 hours that the government went from doing nothing to a national emergency. 48 hours into using the measures. 48 hours without providing Parliament. Action is simple. When will the Prime Minister admit that he's lost control of the situation, that he's lost control of his country, that he's lost control of his caucus, and that he's lost control of his leadership?
Mr. Speaker, I've never seen such shameful, dishonorable remarks coming from this Prime Minister.
Yeah.
My great-grandfather flew over 30 missions overnight. My great-great-uncle's body lies at the bottom of the English Channel. There are members of this Conservative caucus who are the descendants of victims of the Holocaust. For the Prime Minister to accuse any colleague in this House of standing with the swastika is shameful. I'm giving the Prime Minister an opportunity. I'm calling on him to
Like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know many people who have swastikas or who are Confederate people. I don't know. I know they are there, but not anybody that I've ever associated with, because fuck that.
These illegal blockades
Like,
that have continued to interfere with people's livelihoods, to interfere with people's daily lives,
Interrupt the Honourable Prime Minister, so ask everyone to.
Measures put forward in this Emergencies Act are proportional, are responsible, and quite frankly, are completely folded within the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The steps that we are taking are important and measured to restore order and freedoms to Canadians in this country. That is exactly what we're doing.
Well, member refers to a river
people
Mr.
protesting.
Speaker, the lack of an apology from that Prime Minister speaks in this Prime Minister an opportunity to retract a shameful remark where he would accuse descendants
there
of
are
victims of the
swastikas and
Holocaust
Confederate
of
flags
giving the
there.
Prime
It's like, that's
Minister
great.
one more chance. Will he apologize to all members of this House?
I don't know what this is going to do. It's them having like a flag over there, but fuck that guy, obviously. And let's go do something more important.
Conservative Party are calling to us to take more action over the past 2 weeks on this. They continue to stand with and encourage these illegal blockades. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are watching carefully and see exactly where the conservative politicians who've stood with those blockades are standing. We will stand on the side of Canadians who deserve their lives back, who deserve their livelihoods back.
For Sturgeon River Parkland.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker, I didn't write these out. But the fact is, I don't know how any member of the government caucus can stand by this Prime Minister when he accuses honorable members of this House of standing with a swastika. I'm calling on all members of the Liberal caucus to denounce the Prime Minister. I've given him 2 chances to apologize. He has refused to apologize. Mr. Prime Minister, apologize.
I can't believe I'm fucking siding with conservatives, but shit, man, they don't give shit to conservatives and fucking you're fucking following her.
I am a strong Jewish woman and a member of this House and a descendant of Holocaust survivors, and I have never it's never been singled out, and I've never been made to feel less, except for today, when the Prime Minister accused me of standing with swastikas. I think he owes me an apology. I'd like an apology, and I think he owes an apology to all members of this House.
Notice they're not even NDP, it's just like, it's like it doesn't exist. They're saying it's just like, just watch me. That's why. That's what Jeremy said. Like, as soon as Jeremy said, just watch me, should have fucking made sure he was never heard from again. Except something about a baby in a chair and the people being offended. And they muted it. That's how I knew it when something wasn't right with the language translation thing, because you used to always hear the voiceovers and you would faintly hear what they're saying in the back. And now, if you notice, they're completely muted. So when they do the translation, you only hear what the French translation is. I was like, that's maybe just me, but
I want to encourage all members to be as judicious as possible when using words in this chamber, and to reflect on what they say on all cases.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just want to carry on a point that was made by my colleague from Thornhill. You'll notice, Mr. Speaker, that when comments made in the House are so injurious, so insulting, and so unparliamentary, they rise to the level of privilege, Mr. Speaker. As you know, you have the ability to rule on that immediately. What the Prime Minister did, I won't even go into the hypocrisy of the man who did blackface so often he can't remember it, accusing somebody else of doing anything remotely racist. But his comments made to a Jewish member of this House are beyond unparliamentary. They are reprehensible, and I would ask that you rule that this rises to the level of a question of privilege, and I am prepared to move the appropriate motion.
Under advisement and return to the House, should I see fit. We have someone else who has a point of order as well.
This is what I do on my weekend.
The same point of order.
I was
the Honourable Minister for Families, yes.
Your emotions are obviously running very high right now, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to take a step back and reflect on what the values of this House are. I am also a proud Jewish woman who is the descendant of Holocaust survivors, and my family found refuge and support in this country. And Mr. Speaker, we must listen to each other, and we must assure that no one in this House is standing with those who support white supremacy, who support Nazi views, who look to contribute and enable racist views. And Mr. Speaker,
who's supposed to be running our country.
All of us in this House, we are judiciously, including the
Just
member
sitting there, fucking
opposite, who
speak up,
just yelled
motherfucker.
out something
Come
clearly
off script.
inappropriate, because
I'm
all of
fucking
us have
listening to
reason to
recite
be
the
here,
fucking shit
and I
over
would
and over.
call on the members opposite not to stand with those who are sharing those views, because how does it feel as a person in this house seeing taking pictures with people who are looking to overthrow the government? That's what I ask those
Fuck the government. Overthrow them. They're not doing fuck all for me. I'm paying my fucking taxes. I don't get tickets. I've never been arrested. Never fucking. The only ticket I ever received was this at the end of the summer, and it was for walking a dog off leash. 8-pound dog with no teeth.
Credentials here. I will observe
He could be
that,
dangerous.
I too have Jewish ancestors. My grandmother was born in Bialystok. She came here
Not
fortunately
paying the fucking
before the
taxes anymore.
Holocaust occurred. But of the 10,000 Jewish residents of Bialystok when she left, only 500 survived World War II. I would just say that it's not for the member opposite, although I know she spoke sincerely to speak out on this, it is for the Prime Minister to come back and retract his words.
He's not gonna.
Apologize for what he
He needs
said.
to go. I helped put him there. He needs to go. That's when I'll fucking go back to pay my taxes. Once they fucking get shit under control, I'll go back to pay my taxes. But until then, fuck this. No. Because you know what? You're not doing jack shit, I think.
Let's have a look at some of the footage from the strongest and most repressive tool in his government to try and silence and starve these people, to stop them getting their hands on their own money, to stop them getting petrol, to stop them getting food. It's insane what Trudeau is doing. Just have a look at now. The troops have moved in on these people.
Wow, what is this lady doing? Traveling horses.
Oh my god! What are you doing? What are you doing? I guess that's where all our police went, because they're definitely not out after dark.
You guys don't look like bad people. You look like good people. You don't look like bad people. You look like you have good hearts to have the strength to stand like we are.
This is terrifying, James.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ro and Rita, we have gone from 2 weeks to flatten the curve to
Definitely
2 weeks
fucking
to
guys got
flatten
back off over there.
protesters, take your money out of
The
your
body
bank
covering
account,
thing,
make
try to
peaceful
hire your
protest a crime. It
fucking
is an
policing
absolute
matters.
disgrace. And, you know,
You're
it is
trying to
quite
keep the peace,
telling,
you
I
know?
think, that so-called peaceful, progressive, universal liberal Canada has beneath that velvet glove a real iron fist. And it's very, very telling because it's not just about COVID. It is about how all of these progressive governments, think about Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, think of so many others. Macron. Victoria! Exactly right. And every one of these times where, what's the root cause here? They've sacrificed basic principles of individual rights for the collective good. And every time you do that, it ends in tears.
Yeah,
That
I
is
agree.
what is happening here. Make no mistake. This is what happens when you collectivize rights. You literally trample individuals underfoot.
Well said. That was very well said. I can't believe that shit. That was fucking fucked up. Literally, they just trampled a woman, like, with a horse. Like, oh wow, like, that's so dumb. I need to be able to refresh the thing.
With a particular
Tonight on the edge of
Not impressing anything.
tonight on the
Technically, it's afternoon. Hold on. Hold on. All right, people. Let me know if you can hear the audio properly. It's quiet. And it looks like it might be the last day of this protest for those of you. More oil? They section that off. So. One corner now. Truck.
Aww. What the hell?
Wasn't even looking in the right direction, but two of them went off, and I saw stuff go up in the air. No.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable going on the next one.
Oswald, you might want to. I don't know. You want to say hi to the world?
Sorry. I apologize.
Oh, so stay up there. This way, it'll be fine.
Oh,
so much.
so cute.
Can I get a selfie?
Oh.
I'm just yeah, no, you look like a real guy. Yeah.
Oh, everyone's like hugging and crying. That's cute.
He wanted to use, I can't tell you because they might use it. Great job, dude. I've been following you. And everything. When we're driving down looking for the live feeds, we have to do it. I only go for like a few hours because I got to drive back and forth to Montreal. We'll see. Salt's out there, auto walks, Trump 69. Everybody's this guy's got a 360. That is a 364 right there. Oh, this is a media. Let's go.
Oh.
Okay, Neil, what's my name?
Neil.
I got people watching me. Canadian Proud. Woo! It's very cool. Thanks for your donations to get me here. CBC. Oh, what's it? You should have a stroll.
They got into a very good snowball fight, so they had to throw snowballs at the wall.
Whatever. Hey, I think the police are just like
I'm just curious to see how this is gonna end. Oh my god, you poor fucking.
What the fuck? People have to say, I have the luck of like the Irish when it comes to randomly finding money.
My fucking brother's like that. I fucking hate that shit. Just looks down, he's like, oh, $20, huh? Like, literally, we go fucking phone fucking change things. Oh, phone.
Oh, see again. All right, people, we're going to end this with a little beautiful imagery. Two people with the Canadian flags draped on their backs. Numbing, irritating nonsense. They ask a question, they go into talking points. It's like two people just saying the things they want to say without actually listening to or answering the questions. Beyond irritating, it's a joke. Anyone who wants to have a good laugh and like feel nauseous about the state of Canadian politics, watch parliamentary debates.
They would finish the meeting in about 15 minutes if they answered questions. It wouldn't go for 2 hours. You could go have beers after. You could go have fun and solve the rest of the world's problems. But right now, we were down there in the morning and we.
Not even for an adder. You fucking assholes. Okay.
Irritating. It's a joke. Anyone who wants
wrist that was thinner than the clubs that they're using, and it was mangled right at the scaphoid, one of the worst breaks you could do on the wrist, and it was mangled. And then we actually participated in helping 4 people that were pepper sprayed. And these are just normal people. They didn't look aggressive. They didn't look...
I was at a point
Well, they shouldn't be there, right?
Go off for no reason.
You're allowed to protest, just not like that.
Totally, and the guys that are behind the fence by Parliament, they're laughing at people.
Wow.
That's antagonizing as
That's
it is,
fucking
just
retarded.
to laugh and always poke fun at people, and they're to serve and protect. They're for us. I can't believe
They've
it.
never
I'll never
been.
trust cops. I'll never trust politics. I'll
They're a
never trust
brotherhood. They don't
anybody
give a
anymore.
shit
I
about
can't
us.
even trust to be on film here and not get more shit than I'm already in. You know, or
yeah.
Whatever. Thanks.
All right.
Poor guy.
Godspeed.
Yeah.
Be well. Nice to meet you. Bye-bye. All right, have a good day. You heard it, people. Our tax bill is hard at work. I'm going to walk through a couple of checkpoints.
Sure, pain in the eye. Let's hold on to money for you so that when you need it, it's there. Wow, you lost it.
A protest without ever having to discourse with the protesters.
Like, thanks. You guys can hold on to my no money. Like, when you have no money, then they just give you bad credit. Put you in jail.
It's time to leave. What else have I forgotten to discuss? Ticket yesterday, the towing of the car, which was funny. The meeting of the individual from China who told me that the French minority was the actual term. How you doing? You don't want to be on camera? Have you seen the protests?
It's been interesting. I remember there 2 weeks ago I came down to the protests on the Saturday of the first week. It was wonderful. I saw like a new perspective. Like it was.
Hold on a second. That's the guy on the monitor, whatever the hell that thing was. Okay.
I was probably reading it just like throughout the entirety of the pandemic. It was weird. Just like I was just listening to a lot of American news about children and stuff like that, and I didn't feel like Canada was really focused on masks. Maybe news is kind of just like, oh, even with the measures of the masks and Ottawa and Ontario, it's even worse. And when I went down, it was what people were going like, yeah, you know, I think we're done with this. Saturday, a lot, especially with.
Kid's been doing this for fun. Like,
I've never seen a place like this in Canada. How you doing?
My dad's watching you right now.
Well, say hi to your dad.
Hello.
Awesome. Okay, well,
And even like at my school, as a teacher,
I think I got to everything. Auto Walks is down there now, so go check him out. How you doing? You guys want to say hi to the world?
Sure. It's my friend Maya. She's seen you online too, so she wanted to say hi.
Actually, Viva, there is like one person who loves you a lot and following you all the time. Hi guys, her name is Yvonne. So I will just hi to you.
Check out.
And I was watching your videos
Nice
as well.
to see you again.
What you do is amazing. Thank you, and thank you, family. Thanks to family.
I'm going back now. I'm going to go back and I think I'm not coming back tomorrow. So let's see.
Yeah. Thanks so much for documenting all this and for all the legal.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be to keep up with this. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Oui.
C'est quoi qui se passe?
C'est la manifestation, c'est le dernier.
Ouais,
c'est quoi qui se passe? Ben, il y a les politiques ils vont fermer puis ils vont sanctionner leur clôture. OK. Policier. Ils vont empoigner tout le monde. Yeah, can't go around the call. It's impossible to spell So they were just saying what's going on, and the police are. But they, no, that's it. It's just now we're like checkpoint after checkpoint. Yeah, this has been sectioned off because of police. Okay, so anyways, that's it. The guy from China, fringe minority. When Justin Trudeau said it, he said that's exactly what they said in China of the Tiananmen Square protesters, and he said he knew it. And 30 years in Canada, and now he sees this coming into Canada, which is exactly what he fled from China 30 years ago. But that's been a common theme. I parked my car in front of someone's driveway. That was my fault. Oh, that was it. The police will find my car. Found it. And how you doing? Oh, and to get a cab to even get to the tow place, so it's like 2 hours outside.
They tow your fucking car
Anyhow,
45 minutes
well
away.
ends well.
Jesus.
And this will end this live stream. Go check out Autowalks.
All the
Trump 169.
Good, that's
So
why I'm
they're in
fucking towed for
I have a
fucking
feeling
parking
there's
at a
not going to be much left to document
and
tomorrow.
we've shoveled my spot
And
at
we're
the
gonna
fire
see
hydrant.
what
I'm
the
like, I don't give a
political-
shit.
What's been done.
I'm wondering why I
to
haven't been
Canada.
towed yet, or
And
fucking
you've seen
even
it,
getting
and
a
it was
ticket because our cops are not present and are assuming all the truck drivers and fucking in all of Montreal just went.
Military, what could possibly justify any of that? Go watch the music video for Handlebar by Handlebars by now I just forgot the name of the band. I can no Handlebars. Handlebars.
Oh, Flowbots.
Oh, who sings Handlebars, guys? That's it.
In a press release, Costa GasLink alleges 20 individuals wearing masks and camouflage attacked workers at a Maurice River drill pad site. It states attackers used axes to break windows and attempted to set fire to a vehicle while the workers still inside the vehicle. Photos from the company show damaged trailer buildings, heavy equipment damaged, and other vehicles flipped over. The company estimates millions of dollars in damages. The Costa GasLink statement says the RCP were notified and an investigation is underway. The protection of people and the environment is paramount, and we're taking a number of actions.
They pulled them out of the Ukraine and fucking get them to come deal with this shit here.
Who is the most dangerous man in the world? Vladimir Putin? Kim Jong-un? Well, I would happily add Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to that list. This is a man who has, in recent weeks, entirely disregarded the fundamental principles of a free Western democracy. Notwithstanding the absurd and draconian COVID measures that we've seen in Canada, for which a colossal economic, societal, and public health price will be paid, his reaction to a peaceful demonstration has come straight out of the nations. How we got to vaccine mandates for a nasty virus, yes, but one non-fatal to the vast majority, and for a vaccine that does not stop transmission. It's anyone's guess why those mandates have been considered. There's no clear data that vaccine mandates or vaccine passports have significantly helped in stopping the spread of COVID-19. But there's plenty of evidence that they have divided society, set a dangerous precedent linking your medical status to certain freedoms and services, and have supercharged vaccine hesitancy around the world. Well done, everyone. So truckers in Canada who face losing their job if they don't get the jab, understandably descended into the capital city of Ottawa to protest. Unilateral measures like lockdowns, school closures, mask and vaccine mandates, these are not normal mechanisms by which governments are supposed to govern. This is your regular reminder on this program that none of this is normal.
Oh my god, I'm
And not
impressed
much
again
of
with
it
this fucking word
makes
I
any
can't.
sense to me either. Covering people's faces, locking healthy people up, keeping them at home, stopping them from going out and making a living, jabbing people against their will, which is effective.
Invocation of Emergencies Act. How is it unprecedented if you're the one who did it? Okay, this is last year my word was Odyssey. It's like maybe ever used in my lifetime. And then suddenly everything was like, Mario Odyssey, car, Odyssey. Like fucking, it was just everywhere. The next news network? What is this?
After Trudeau used emergency powers on truckers, Parliament erupts when he enters. Welcome to the next news network. My name is Blake Cresses. I host the KGB show on YouTube. Subscribe for real.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that on my first time watching
Parliament, but he simply refuses as he attempted to answer their questions about his increasingly authoritarian handling of the trucker convoy. During the session, Trudeau mindlessly grasped his paper full of talking points, ignored the members' questions completely, and parroted his carefully crafted word salad of BS.
All right, fine. All right, fine.
To restore order because Trudeau's response had been completely drowned out. Conservative Party interim leader Candice Bergen kicked off the fireworks when she confronted Trudeau directly over his use of the Emergencies Act, which she called an unprecedented sledgehammer in his crackdown against the truckers. Check out this clip.
Prime Minister invoked the emergency.
Check out this clip.
Prime Minister invoked the Emergencies Act. 24 hours in, and there are more questions than answers. Questions about whether this is justified, questions around if the criteria is met, questions around what this means to Canadians' rights and freedoms. Parliamentary approval is required in order for the Prime Minister to use this unprecedented sledgehammer. So, can the Prime Minister tell us, when will Parliament be debating this? Will it be coming to us on Friday? Means to Canadians' rights and freedoms. Parliamentary approval is required in this. Will it be coming to us on Friday? And does he expect that we will look at it Friday, but then rise, take a week off, and not actually deal with this until March?
No. Bergen Trudeau provided absolutely no justification other than giving his assurance.
No. Don't.
Discussions with cabinet and caucus, after consultations with the premiers of all provinces and territories, after a conversation with opposition leaders, we decided to invoke the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations. The scope of these measures are time limited and geographically targeted. They are reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address, and they are fully compliant with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to reassure all Canadians that this is the right thing to move forward.
Honorable. Completely unsatisfied with the weak excuses, Bergen fired back. The crowd cheered in agreement before quickly turning on the Prime Minister as he fumbled through his next response. They can even be heard laughing at Trudeau as he tries to remember his talking points, which forced the Speaker to step in and restore order. Watch this clip.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
I had a very simple question to the Prime Minister he was not able to answer. It would appear this could be more political drama for the Prime Minister. He name calls people that he disagrees with. He wedges, he divides, he stigmatizes. Yet in spite of all of his failure, Coote's border has cleared. Windsor has opened up. Provinces and police are doing their jobs, and blockades are starting to come down. But the Prime Minister thinks that now is the time to use this extreme measure and invoke the Emergencies Act. Isn't it true that the Prime Minister's actions could serve to actually make things worse and not make things better?
Communities and neighborhoods and ensuring jobs and our economy.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'm trying to hear the answer, and I'm having a very difficult time. There's some shouting going on. I'm going to have to ask the honourable members, maybe just keep it down. And if you've got something that you're not agreeing with, talk amongst yourself and someone next to you. You don't have to shout it out to the person across the floor. Right Honourable
Because how would that do? Rather than make a conversation.
How much do you have to piss off a Canadian to get them angry? Well, it may seem like a joke. We got to see that after Trudeau decided to be a tyrant. The idea that he could unilaterally freeze any bank account without cause is absurd. And now Trudeau is refusing to follow the law that could override
Never
his
seen
decision.
anybody walk out of
Is this
Parliament.
type of action?
You don't actually
Should it come to
physically see him
America?
walking out.
I think so.
But no, it's
Why
obviously
didn't
to
you do the
sit
same
there
thing
for the
to
whole fucking
protesters
time
in
they're
our
talking.
country? Comment
Apparently,
below.
because we would be paying
Subscribe
attention
for
to
updates. And if you like what we're doing here, give us a thumbs up. Explore the links in our description. And please share this report on your social networks. For the Next News Network, I am Blake Cresses.
Thanks, Blake.
Thank you for watching that report.
Collagen.
Leaders. The federal government. Leaders.
It's so funny because I almost made a fucking picture like that. Fucking Trump is fucking is gonna do Kim Jong-un.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
Oh, you should go check that one out. It's fucking true.
Jasper here.
Okay.
They are Canadians who want to be heard, and they should be heard. Now, no is that Justin Trudeau disagrees with them. He does that. We don't believe that it's the right thing to do. Let's be very clear how this all started. The Prime Minister decided to impose a vaccine mandate on truckers. There was no scientific proof or evidence that it was the right thing to do. Truckers opposed it. Many Canadians opposed it, but he went ahead with it anyway. Truckers came to Ottawa, and their supporters came to Ottawa, and Justin Trudeau, first of all, hid for a week, and then he began to call them names and say that their opinion was unacceptable and we should tolerate these people. And that was about all he did to try to rectify the problem or even let these folks know that they were being heard. So the first act that he done, he doesn't go through step 1, 2, 3. He goes straight to 100 and invokes the Emergencies Act. And at the same time, we're seeing borders clearing at Coutts, at Windsor, where I'm hearing in Manitoba to clear. And so they have a lot of questions around what it means for someone
he wants to get people riled up
to the protest maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Will their bank account be frozen? Will their credit rating now
so that
be hampered?
at that
There's
point
a lot
you
of
do
questions
have to
around
fucking
the fiscal
arrest
implications.
people.
This isn't just the Emergencies Act on these protesters, and even the Minister of Public Safety yesterday said a small group. This is against all Canadians. So, we're really concerned about the fiscal situation in Canada. Even prior to the protests, we have supply chain issues. We knew the vaccine mandate would make supply chain issues even worse. So a lot of concerns going on in Canada right now. I'll tell you who the Prime Minister has an emergency going on. He's got a political emergency in his own caucus, in his own party, and with his own polling numbers here in Canada. This is not the way to address it, and it's hurting Canadians.
Angry people shout at talk show.
There's some honor in that. There's definitely some honor. I got like AR.
What's going on over there? Old Smoky there.
On this Saturday night, the final push. Police close in on the heart of the protest in the nation's capital.
We are in this until it is over.
The response from police, parliament, and
I like
the
how
protesters
many cops there are.
I'll get pepper sprayed every single second.
on the brink of war.
We do not know what will happen, but the risk for conflict is real.
Russia launches nuclear exercises as you sparks debate over
Fucking-
athlete age limits.
Oh my god.
Global National.
We just please, for the love of God, just like stop with this shit. I swear to God, if I have to hear about the fucking Olympics again, I'm gonna like, fucking my brain's gonna explode. That or the Habs game. Like, fucking, they just like are gonna play forever, I guess, now. Until they start maybe fucking getting the opposing team to just like, yeah, you guys won, good job. That was my fuck up. We can do it. It's like the little choo-choo.
Tonight, Jeff Semple.
Police and protesters faced off for a second straight day in the nation's capital, and at times those tensions erupted into violence. But tonight, it appears the occupation is now into its final hours. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Police and protesters are accusing each other of abusive behavior after a day that saw officers reclaim the street in front of Parliament Hill. At least 170 people have been arrested as part of the convoy crackdown. And Ottawa's police chief warned their investigation into others involved will continue for many months. David Aiken spent the day reporting from the protest and joins us now from Parliament Hill. David.
Well, Jeff, the Battle of Wellington Street in front of the Parliament buildings is over. It took 3 weeks, but police have cleared the street,
No, they did not.
and the trucks and the protesters, well, they're gone.
Hundreds of police officers began the final push early Saturday morning, many wearing helmets and
And you
carrying
guys are
wooden
taking away their
batons
kids saying it's
against
child
a
abuse.
few hundred protesters, some of whom were wearing body armor, said police. Some protesters also had smoke grenades, which they used against the police line. But police did employ riot control techniques, including loud bangs to scare and disorient protesters.
I think that's the turning point that we need to see.
Slowly, methodically, over several hours, police pushed protesters back. Officers from municipal forces in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and elsewhere assisting.
That's where all our cops went. Until it is over. Every one of our police agency partners has indicated their
Even the
continued
shaggy
ongoing
cop
support to work with us to finish this unlawful occupation.
Many would not leave voluntarily, and more than 50 were arrested Saturday. Some had to be subdued with pepper spray. Police say they will review any complaints of excessive force, but the chief also says those protesters were warned.
We also indicated that we would escalate and forcibly remove people from the streets if they did not comply.
Nonetheless, some brought their children to the front lines of the confrontation, which is itself a violation of the Federal Emergencies Act. Many drivers got the message and took their vehicles off the hill under their own steam. But some drivers locked themselves in their cabs and, after receiving multiple warnings from police, were forced out. Then the towing began.
Oh, that's great.
And all of this took place in front of West Block, where, in the House of Commons, MPs spent the day debating the use of the Federal Emergencies Act. MPs continued debate Sunday before voting on Monday. Citing that act, banks had, as of Saturday, frozen 76 accounts with a combined $3.2 million in them, that authorities say was to be used to support the occupation.
As human beings, we make choices.
One of those whose account was frozen, protest organizer Tamara Leach, arrested Thursday night, but in court in Ottawa today, where she told the judge she's unable to pay a $1,700 hotel bill. Leach will stay behind. King of Red Deer, Alberta, another convoy organizer. He was in court Saturday, but he'll stay in bail.
Please step out of the vehicle, sir.
It was the same with Pat King of Red Deer, Alberta, another convoy organizer. He was in court, but he'll stay in jail till his bail hearing concludes Tuesday. But one of the convoy organizers is free. Chris Barber was released yesterday on $100,000 of bail and a promise to go to his home.
First Nation.
Concludes Tuesday. But one of the
Are these
convoy
both Native
organizers
people?
is free.
Chris Barber was released yesterday on $100,000 of bail and a promise to go to his home
First
in
Nation.
Current, Saskatchewan.
First Nation.
Jeff?
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Well,
I'm
police
pretty
continue
sure
their operation in the downtown core. As you can see, the streets of the city are beginning to look more bare and normal. Our Sean O'Shea has been in the midst of that police operation again today. So, Sean, how are things looking from your vantage point?
You've got the OPP, the Ottawa Police, and you've got concrete barricades and fences. And these have gone up all through the day, basically ringing this center of the city, including the Chateaubriand Hotel.
While you guys fucking wait for the army to come home from fucking like doing me in Russia.
Ottawa. Police are asking people what their purpose is to come in here, and that's because they're still in the midst of trying to clean up this protest.
Because the fucking municipal police are not already
on for a day or two.
They
or
literally
more
spend our tax money on getting cowboy hats.
And I understand earlier in the day, Sean, you were speaking with some of the remaining protesters. What are you hearing from them today?
Jeff, there was a sense of, it's coming to an end, but many came up to us to talk about what they hoped people would remember from this protest, that they weren't all bad guys, even though a lot of people in the city here don't lament the fact that they're leaving. Here's what a couple told us.
Mm-hmm. We are hardworking Canadians. We pay taxes.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we have open dialogue?
Be the light. Yeah. Be the light. Tell them. I'm gonna watch.
Yeah.
You tell them that there are people here who are here for the right reasons to fix Canada.
When he said we're going to watch, he was talking about watching our broadcast, watching our story, because most of these protesters came up to us and said,
from the area, the slow, methodical approach that we saw from police yesterday seemed to be replaced with a much tougher line today. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief, Mercedes Stevenson, has been on the ground today. So, Mercedes, what did you make of the police tactics you saw today?
Did you just go to concert?
Jeff, it felt very different from yesterday, where things started out very slowly. The officers who were on the front line yesterday were just in their regular uniforms. They didn't have additional body armor or helmets on. Today it was clear that there was a different tone being set. The officers who came out were wearing riot gear. They were on the front lines, and they were carrying large wooden batons with them, which they were using to strike people if they didn't move back when the police line moved forward. They also had gas masks in some cases, and eventually the line that I got pushed back by on a side street here had full-blown gas masks under riot helmets, which led people to believe they were going on their knees, begging with officers saying, please don't do this. You did not move when they told you to move. Times headline appeared to report. And most importantly, no one died, because there was a false report on American News that a woman was trampled by a horse yesterday. That did not happen. That was confirmed by both police and EMS. But the police chief did talk today about the problem they've had with misinformation and disinformation. This is what he had to say.
One of the tactics that the protesters and demonstrators are using is misinformation. Information that is inaccurate, information that misleads the public. We're actively
connection's still unstable, I know.
Information out through social media and other media mechanisms in order